Where is she? How, I'm not going to call on you because I can't see you. That's good, actually, by design. You guys are going to think we worked that out because our questions are so tough. Well, that's good. Has anyone seen Skubik? Uh-oh. All right. You look prepared, so that's not good. Not good for me. And then we just, once again, someday we'll get Rick Albin. You guys watch Rick Albin? His show's incredible. And one day, is Wood TV here? No? There must be a lot going on in West Michigan. The roads were bad, so. You guys excited for some action on the House floor today? Been waiting for that for a while, haven't we? So that'll be good. So yeah, I just wanted to first of all announce a few things and then talk about our Oversight Committee. But I wanted to announce first of all, and this is highly anticipated, this Oversight Committee. It's gotten more press than any other thing we've done. But our new chairman of the House Oversight Committee is going to be Representative Jay DeBoer. So that's great, Jay. It's going to be great to have Jay DeBoer in that position. A very strong member of our caucus, somebody who takes it very seriously. You know, I was the oversight chair, so I know what it takes, and it takes a tenacity and a commitment to digging into what these departments of government are doing and getting the truth. And you look at it, you know, we have over 40, they told me today, 44 audits from last session that have either material or reportable conditions. And those are findings from the Auditor General. And the Democrats didn't have hearings on them, those 44. So when I was oversight chair, we had, and you remember, some of you were there, we had hearings on every one of these audits that found material or reportable conditions in these state departments. And you might remember we had hearing and multiple hearings, hearing after hearing after hearing on child protective services. People said that was the worst audit they've ever seen. And then we keep getting them, and they keep showing that the Child Protective Services is not doing very well. The Unemployment Insurance Agency, you guys remember, we had a lot of hearings on that. And you know, they're getting a little better, but there's still, every one of these audits, because what happens is they get a bad audit, the press covers it for a couple days, and then the politicians, they do one hearing. Well, what we did with the Unemployment Insurance Agency is we got with the Auditor General and we said, like, for the next 4 or 5 years, you're going to do audit after audit after audit on this schedule. So then the department has to come in and keep, because what they do is they come in and they say, oh yeah, we fixed it. You guys have sat through those hearings. Every department comes in and says, we fixed it, it's good, thank you for the audit. Well, what we learned from the Unemployment Insurance Agency audit is when you audit that stuff 6 months later or a year later, the department is lying. They didn't fix it, okay? And so the Auditor General has been a tool to show that, but it has to be relentless over and over and over as we're trying to get these results for state agencies. I'll say we give a lot of credit to the media. You know, Beth has done a great job with her reporting on this. A lot of times we find out about departments not following the law and not using tax dollars appropriately from the press. Why is that? Why is it that the press is where we find out? Why doesn't anyone in government know before the press tells us? That's why I granted this sweeping subpoena power to the House Oversight Committee because we want to be the first ones to know. Your elected officials should be the first ones to know when these departments of government in the bureaucracy are not following laws or they're not spending tax dollars appropriately. And with our sweeping subpoena power and a robust oversight committee, we will get to the bottom of cases where departments are breaking laws, ignoring laws, or spending tax dollars in contrary to the law. And so that's what this robust subpoena power is really about. I mean, I'll just talk about a couple things. Like, you look at this, you know, they lost all the liquor bottles. You remember that? They do this audit and they just say there are thousands and thousands of liquor bottles that just disappear in the Michigan Liquor Control Commission. Nobody does anything about it, right? I mean, where did they go? You know, it's interesting. Well, we're going to solve that mystery. We're going to find out where they are. And you look at this DHHS department, and I mean, it's just a monstrosity. And when I was oversight chair, almost every failing audit in state government was in DHHS. And I'd say you look at this, and there are even Democrats, by the way. If you look at what some of the Democrats are saying, I saw what Benson said yesterday. I mean, they're actually following my lead on this, because we came out a few weeks ago and said we're going to have 3 oversight committees that look into DHHS, and we're going to have 3 appropriations committees handling DHHS. And we've been driving this because DHHS is a huge monstrosity in government that needs significant oversight in many places. And then yesterday, Jocelyn Benson comes out says, well, you know, I think we need to do something about DHHS. Isn't that interesting? So good. I'm happy Democrats are starting to follow our lead on this as we're blazing this trail, because objectively it is a problem. And really you guys should report it's a problem, because it is. I mean, how do you manage a department with that many reportable and material findings and that many failed audits? So that's why we're going to have the 3 subcommittees that look into it. I'll just talk about that in a sec. And then one more thing I just want to point out. I mean, this DNR, you know, you see them trying to clear cut these forest land and build all these solar panels everywhere. You know, those are issues that we need to look into and understand. And an oversight committee with subpoena power will do that. Now, I hope that the departments do it willingly. I mean, if the departments come forward willingly and share information, come and testify, whether it's under oath or not, you know, we'll determine in those circumstances, and turn over all their documents, even if they feel like they're not required to do so. If they do that, we won't have a problem. Now, when I chaired the Joint Select Committee, what I found, and when I chaired the Oversight Committee, is they don't always do that. And probably the worst offender is Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson. You know, when we were subpoenaing her office for records on the election, the 2020 election, you know, there was a lot of obstruction. She would not come in and testify before us. And what happened was the term ran out. Because if you were, you know, the term ran out and the subpoena power expired. Well, that's, you know, I'm going to be here for 6 years, probably as Speaker, longer than she'll be here. And so that subpoena power will not run out this time, I'll tell you that. And we're going to get answers. Now, hopefully they cooperate. I mean, hopefully they just come in voluntarily and talk. But if they don't, we will issue subpoenas. Jay DeBoyer and his committee, the Oversight Committee, will have full authority to issue subpoenas to compel these state government officials and their departments to turn over documents relevant to their investigations and also to appear and testify, whether that's in a deposition outside of the committee or whether that's in front of the committee under oath. Those are the kind of things we're going to be seeing. And I'll just say, you know, what we're doing is we're hiring a number of lawyers and investigators, people with prosecution experience, people with investigative experience, because we're not messing around. We are going to get to the bottom of the misspending of government funds and also departments that are blatantly breaking the law. I mean, you look at what they did, where the MEDC, they make these deals. The politicians put guardrails on the deals and say, you shall not deliver this money until you meet these conditions. And then if the company doesn't do what they're supposed to do, you're supposed to claw it back. And then you see, from the day I started, the MEDC came in, and you remember this audit in 2019, they came in and said, well, we just call them on the phone, and if they verify the jobs, we send them the money. Okay, that's how we started in 2019. And then just the other day, we found out from Beth LeBlanc in the Detroit News that they just pay out $666 million to GM, even if they don't create the jobs. And then GM sells their interest to another company as they're leaving Michigan. This is the kind of stuff that we are going to be investigating moving forward. Every one of these economic development deals, to look into them and determine, are they following the law? Are they spending our tax dollars according to the law or not? And if they're not, we're going to expose it and we're going to hold them accountable. So I have a lot more to talk about. I'll just say one more thing. I'll just remind you what the 6 subcommittees are. The first is a very important one, the weaponization of state government. That is a very important matter. You're seeing everyone from DHHS to our Attorney General and Secretary of State weaponizing government. You know, our child welfare system, I mentioned that. That is one of the biggest problems in state government. And because these vulnerable kids don't have lobbyists, nobody does anything about it. We are going to dedicate a subcommittee specifically to fixing our child welfare system and taking care of our most vulnerable kids. I mentioned the corporate subsidies and state investments. everything from these bad economic development deals, and maybe we'll find some good ones. I told our people, maybe the Detroit News is just biased against the MEDC, and when they come in and testify under oath, we'll find out that there are all these great economic development deals they did. It's just the Detroit News hasn't told us about them. I mean, that's possible. Anything's possible, right? But we're going to look into these corporate subsidies and the state investments. How are they, somebody told me, one of your reporting, I hate to pick on the Detroit News, but maybe it was you. So, what are they making? $600, $700 million a year in investment income because they're not spending the money. And then they tell us that they need to raise taxes to fix roads. It's pretty interesting, isn't it? Or they didn't have enough money for school resource officers. So it's $600, $700 million a year in interest they're getting. Well, what are they, we need to be looking into these state investments. That's why it's called corporate subsidies and state investments. Public health and food security. I mean, we all learned during the pandemic how fragile our food supply is. But we're also going to be looking into public health initiatives and nutrition initiatives of the state of Michigan. The Michigan Public Health Institute, which is a shady quasi-government organization where you see these people appear. They're on the DHHS org chart, but they work for MPHI, and then that shields them from accountability and transparency. So we'll be working on that, looking into that. And are these public health initiatives of the state of Michigan, are they making us healthier? With these free school lunches and free breakfasts, are they nutritious? And we'll be partnering as well, you see, with Trump's DHHS department and some of their initiatives as we're looking into that oversight and how the state is cooperating with those initiatives. Homeland security and foreign influence. You saw the University of Michigan is distancing itself from the Chinese Communist Party. That's a good thing. But we have all kinds of problems in our state, everything from drones flying around or are our bridges secure? Is our cybersecurity secure? And we have the Chinese Communist Party buying up farmland, battery plants, infiltrating our universities. There's a lot to do there in oversight. And then our state and local public assistance programs. As Democrats left their trifecta, now they didn't present all the bills, but the ones they did present, that greatly expanded the welfare state in Michigan. We need to look into, are our government programs going to the people they're intended to? Are they going to people, people that need them, that are working on an education, a job, or are they going to fraudsters? What are the checks they're doing? I mean, when I chaired the the Oversight Committee, you look at the UIA, these guys would come in and say, oh yeah, we're doing everything we need to do. And then we found out, no, they turned off all the fraud detection tools and they hid that from us for a year and they paid out billions of fraud. Well, are they doing the checks on all these expanded welfare programs, the food stamps, the cash assistance, and all the other ones, the unemployment benefits that they expanded? We're going to find out. We need to get value for tax dollars. We need to rein in these bureaucracies. And we need to make sure that the government works for the people again. I'll also point out that, all these state office buildings are empty. And I don't know where these workers are, but the Lansing Chamber of Commerce sure wants to know. So, we're going to be looking very carefully at the bureaucracy and the departments and understanding why is it that these workers are all working for home? And would they better serve the people of Michigan if they were in their offices doing work? I'll tell you, with Jocelyn Benson's office, we were all trying to file our required paperwork after the election, and we were going down there, and they told us the elections department is working in an undisclosed location for the foreseeable future, so you cannot turn in your forms here. Well, what the hell are we supposed to do? We're required under the law to turn in these forms. And so that's the kind of stuff that happens when people don't show up for work. I bet they didn't tell any of you that the Department of Elections was not showing up to work to accept this paperwork after the election. So we're going to be digging into that. The people of Michigan want their government workers working and working in the office. And I'm not even talking about the Lansing Chamber of Commerce. I mean, you look out how empty all these streets are out here. It's incredible. It's incredible. It's much different than when I started in 2019. So then I'll just point out, we'll also be creating a website, which we'll announce more next week. There's a lot of good people that work in government that see the fraud, that see the waste, that see the abuse, that see the departments mismanaging tax dollars and breaking laws. And when I was Oversight Committee chair before, I would hear from a lot of these people. So we're going to create a website where people can report this information and help our Oversight Committee get to the bottom of these matters so government works better for people. So I'll turn it over now to our brand new Oversight Chairman, State Representative Jay DeBoyer.
Thank you, Speaker Hall.
All right.
Appreciate that. How are you guys this morning? I am good. I'm going to tell you that today, frankly, is a good day for the citizens and the taxpayers of the state of Michigan. For the last couple of years, unfortunately, being in the minority, I had to stand by and watch inefficiency, waste, fraud, abuse go, frankly, unfettered. As Speaker Hall had mentioned, there were as many as 50 audits that were done, with as many as 40 plus showing deficiencies, and I think maybe 2 hearings were held on that. I mean, I believe that that's a total irresponsible behavior and action out of the administration, out of the controlling party of the House and the Senate, and that's going to change starting today. When I was sent to Lansing by the people of my district, the number one thing I heard from them is bring government back to the people. Get it out of the hands of bureaucrats. Get it out of the hands of unelected officials who make decisions that impact their daily life in a detrimental way. And so that is my commitment to the people of the state of Michigan by taking the reins to this committee. We are going to look into things. We are going to investigate things. We are going to turn leaves over. The press that's here, obviously, you do this on a daily basis, right? And as Speaker Hall spoke to earlier, it's a shame when we find out about things in the media, right? I think the idea of a tip line and the idea of a website that people can produce information to us, by the way, without repercussion from their perhaps boss or the administrator that oversees that department, is a good thing. I think the idea that the average taxpayer and citizen can offer us suggestions that they're witnessing in their interaction with departments is a good thing. So I look forward to looking into this because the people of the state of Michigan deserve a much better government than they've received in the last couple of years. I'm going to tell you, I take the position of this chair extremely serious. I believe it's the first defense to our taxpayers in the waste of their dollars. As Speaker Hall had mentioned, and I'm sure you're aware, there is a subpoena power that comes with this Oversight Committee. I'm going to tell you, first of all, my hope is that we never have to use it. My hope is that when we ask a department head for documents, or we ask an individual to come and testify, that they come and testify. The ultimate goal would be able to get this Oversight Committee rolling and never have to execute that subpoena power. And frankly, when we do have to execute that subpoena power, if we do have to execute that subpoena power, it's going to be done professionally, it's going to be done respectfully. It certainly is not going to be used as a political weapon. It will be used when we have decided as a committee that there is enough there that it should be used. You can hold me to that as we move forward. I believe respect is the number one aspect for an oversight committee to have validity. And I am going to be certain that that maintains with the Oversight Committee. The taxpayers expect their departments to run efficiently. They expect their departments to run for their benefit. They certainly don't expect their departments to weaponize themselves against the individual to further a political agenda, to further a cause that the employees that may work at that department or the department head, or for that matter, the administration, wants accomplished. They're there to serve the people, not to hinder the people. So I can promise you that's going to be one of the angles that I'm looking at when I look at the behavior of departments, when we review these audits, when we look at what those deficiencies are. And in the end, this isn't a gotcha game. This is about changing the behavior of government to better benefit the taxpayers. That's what the end goal is. And I think you will see policies come out of the Oversight Committee and recommendations out of the Oversight Committee that will do just that with multiple departments within the state. You know, I mentioned the audits. To me, that's abominable, that we can have that many audits and literally nothing was done. The unemployment issue, $8 billion, $8+ billion, either fraudulently obtained or not being qualified to obtain, hasn't been clawed back. Millions and millions of dollars spent on leases on buildings that are empty because state employees aren't working in their office. And then we have the gall from an administration to say we need to raise taxes to fix roads? $8 billion. That's a big number. That's real money. You know, and I just find it ironic, Speaker Hall, that we're rolling this out today, and just yesterday, as some of you may or may not know, I spent 12 years as a county clerk. A county clerk runs elections, maintains campaign finance, oversees that, if necessary, doles out fines, if someone doesn't behave in the manner they're supposed to within the campaign finance law. I find it ironic that just yesterday, our chief official that oversees the Bureau of Election and maintains control of campaign finance laws had a kickoff event and a campaign rally, essentially, in a state-funded government building. Now, there's going to be a debate, I'm sure, that says no harm, no foul. But I'm going to tell you that if 3 weeks ago Eric Nesbitt would have announced on the floor of the Senate that he was running for governor, everybody standing here would have lost their mind. Jocelyn Benson would have said that he's in violation of campaign finance. Dana Nessel very well may have called him a criminal, right? So the problem we have here is that there's this double standard that has occurred in government. It doesn't just apply from the administration to us. It applies from the powers that be to the citizens of the state of Michigan. Rules that apply to you but don't apply to the people who are enforcing those rules. I can tell you that that needs to stop, and from my authority on the Oversight Committee, we are going to navigate in a way that we will stop that. And we will expose that, and we will demonstrate to the people of the state of Michigan that the government is not going to continue to operate that way. So I think that moving forward with oversight is going to make our state better. It's going to make our state more efficient. My hope is that I deter some of the bad actors to come and take advantage of your hard-earned tax dollars. And so with that, I'll sum it up, say thank you, Speaker, for having the confidence in me to do this job. I can promise to you I will do it diligently to the best of my ability. And I look forward to doing this for people of the state of Michigan.
Great. Wow. Great job. So, and I'll just say real quick, you know, this is about reasserting the power of the Michigan House, an equal branch of government. And over the last 2 years under Speaker Tate, it was really an extension of the governor's office. So that's why you didn't see any of these audits, because they were basically working for the governor, the whole House. So, you know, there's a lot of work to do, a lot of cleanup work on these 44 audits that have material findings or other findings and haven't been heard yet. So we're going to have to work through that backlog and then work through all the new issues that come up too. I've given them the guidelines with those 6 subcommittees of the 6 areas that I would like to see the committee focus on. And as chairman, you know, Jay DeBoyer will have the discretion to pick up other issues beyond those 6 with the full committee. I also want to say that the committee will have bills from time to time. There will be some legislation through the committee. What we expect each of these subcommittees and the committee to do is investigate and come up with recommendations and findings and present that, and then work to solve those problems through, you know, budget boilerplate, through new laws and things that can make these departments work better for the people. So with that, I'll turn it over to questions. I'm sure you have a lot for Jay, but if there's any for either one of us. So any questions? Yeah, does Jordan have one? Okay. I see you back there, Jordan. Yeah, well, there's, you know, a lot of people consider what Winnie Brink's doing is weaponization of government with her frivolous lawsuit, but we're not, and people would probably want to see us have her subpoenaed, but we're not going to do that. So if that was your question, we should do it, but we're not going to do it.
But the question I was going to say is, you mentioned bills. I was wondering if there was anything in particular, especially for like a first order of business, that you guys had in mind, or is this sort of something that, as needs arise, legislation will follow?
Yeah, and the reason we won't do it is, see, I can't tell her what to do. She's an independent branch, and she can't tell us what to do. So her lawsuit saying that we should present, she doesn't. That's not a thing. The Senate doesn't tell the House what to do. Do you want to answer her question, or do you want me to?
I can.
You can. Yeah,
Sure.
he's the chairman, so let's see how he does.
Briefly, so I'm not coming into this role with any preconceived goals, desires, wishes, issues, other than to look at everything thoroughly to make state government run more efficiently and more in the interest of the taxpayer, frankly. So no, there is no agenda. There's no directive from Matt Hall other than be responsible and be in the interest of the people of the state of Michigan at this point. Now, I can tell you as we move forward and we discover things, because I would say that it would be great to believe that there's no deficiencies in state government, but no one believes that. And as we find them, we will offer legislation that will and should and can improve that circumstance. So from that moment forward, we wouldn't have to worry about the falling back into the same old, if you will. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, right here. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You did a great job yesterday. Are you on 2 TV stations?
I sometimes do for
Yeah. Oh, great. Yeah, you do a good job.
So today, you kind of mentioned some of the departments that you were looking to get oversight for, just ENR, SLS, Economic Development Corporation, and yesterday, corrections, MSP, in general. Is there any department that you believe is doing a great job right now that may not need that oversight, or is it a all-encompassing?
Well, yeah, it was interesting. When we were at the State of the State last year, you guys should look for this year. So every one of those department heads was like this when they were walking by. They wouldn't look at the Republicans. So I don't know if they were trying to hide something. I don't know. But look, we're going to look at where the biggest problems are, and that's where those 6 subcommittees came from, where I think the biggest problems in state government are, the biggest issues that need to be addressed. You have 44 audits out there that have findings from the Auditor General that need to be looked at. And then issues will come up. And I mentioned, when I was looking at creating 6 committees, probably number 7 and number 8 would have been corrections and state police. I feel like those departments are really struggling. They're being run poorly right now. But we have subcommittees that handle that. We have appropriations subcommittees directed to corrections, and we have one directed to the state police. And you contrast that with weaponization of government that reaches many different departments, like the Attorney General, the Secretary of State, and the Department of Health and Human Services. Also, DHHS is so big that it made sense to me to break it up into multiple oversight committees. So we're gonna work very closely with our appropriations subcommittees on state police and corrections and try to fix those problems. And then the oversight committee, Jay here has the discretion to come in over the top and hold additional hearings, because those are 2 departments that really need it. So I think with the smaller departments, we'll rely more on our appropriations subcommittees. And then when there are problems, the full oversight committee will come in and hold hearings. And, he'll have the discretion to hold those hearings on any emerging issue that comes up, because they keep coming up. Yes?
Yes, Speaker Hall, just on a current issue on number 7, corrections, they hold a lot of mentally ill prisoners. Regardless of how you feel about those prisoners and crimes they committed, the state actually has a legal responsibility to try to keep them safe. So since 2024, prisoners have jumped 4 stories to their deaths by going over the same low railing, which, even though it's been the subject of an employee complaint that it was unsafe to employees, they still didn't do anything about it as a state law. And now the state's going
Yeah, so I'll say this, like, as a state representative, you get all kinds of calls. And we get calls from family members of people in our corrections system who feel that their family members are being abused. And I know years ago they created a corrections ombudsman for the Michigan legislature, and in order to interact between the legislature and the corrections department, because there's so many of these complaints. I find that politically there's not a large constituency for prisoners, just like there's not a big constituency for vulnerable elderly people or vulnerable kids in our systems. But I agree with you, the state has a duty to those vulnerable populations to ensure that they're safe. And we need to work more closely on getting our corrections department to do that. It's not the politically popular thing to do to ensure safe living conditions for prisoners and our corrections workers on the job. That might not be the politically expedient thing to do, but as part of our duty as the state of Michigan to ensure that it's a safe work environment for our corrections officers and also a safe environment to live for our prisoners.
Speaker Hall, I think we're going to hear, your opponents right out the gate call this committee an attempt to, conduct witch hunts. And the word that you guys are using today is investigation. So what is this committee's, boundary or line between an investigation becoming a witch hunt, or what do you have to say to people that are going to call this committee a witch hunt?
Well, look, I mean, they said all kinds of things during the pandemic. And one thing government departments do, and their protectors, these Democrat elected officials, one thing they do is they call us names and they try to question our motives. But I'll tell you this, every single time that we've had it on good authority that there's a problem in a State Department, and then they come into our committees and tell us that there's not a problem, there was a problem. And these department heads are great salesmen, and maybe they've convinced some of you sometimes. I know they've even convinced me. And then you get back to the facts and you find out the MEDC, they're lying when they say they claw back and when they say that they follow laws before they pay out money. And they've been lying since 2019, at least, according to the information that the media has uncovered and the audits. And so you feel stupid believing these people, but they're great politicians and salespeople. And then when you get the facts and the data and the information these politicians and bureaucrats don't want you to have, you find out they're not serving the people of Michigan well. They're not following laws, and they're misspending dollars. We saw it with the Unemployment Insurance Agency. I mean, the first meeting I was there, Steve Gray came in and said, all we have to do is expand unemployment benefits and everything will be fine during the pandemic. Could you imagine how much fraud would have been paid out if we would have listened to him? And then the Democrats just did it. They just expanded it, even though that system still isn't fixed. And that's why we need oversight committees looking into those programs and ensuring that they're spending the tax dollars wisely. These bureaucrats forget these are not their dollars. These are taxpayer dollars. People in Michigan worked really hard to earn this money and give it to their government. And we, as the State House, have a responsibility representing the people to ensure that that dollar is spent wisely and according to the law and according to the authority of the House Appropriations Committee in that budget that we all vote for. So, and then you look at Robert Gordon and all the things that happened when he was there in DHHS, some of which still continue today. They come in, they have all these great excuses, but it's not until you get the documents and you really look through that you find out that these people are just putting spin on it and hoping that they outlast all of us and the politicians. So, and look, you guys know it's true because you guys report on this stuff too, and you see the difference between what these people say and what really is going on. So we'll just be proven by the facts when we uncover all of the fraud, when we uncover mismanagement of the departments, when we uncover misspending of tax dollars. And look, I was oversight chair. You saw every one of those audits we came through, and we had concrete recommendations, we had concrete legislation, and we fought to improve the departments. And maybe it'll give Jocelyn Benson some more things to campaign on, since she's just adopting all my ideas. Yeah.
So, I guess this is kind of a picture question we've been talking about, uncovering corruption, fraud, blah, blah, blah. That's not too nice, sorry. But with the oversight committee, how do we know that the committee has been a success? Does it look to more than just
Yeah, sure.
audits? Like, what is the goal? How do we know we have achieved?
Yeah. Basically, you're asking how are you going to measure us, right? Is that right? Well, I got to be honest with you. I hope we have nothing to hold hearings on, right? But as I said before, we all know how government operates. We watch it. I've witnessed it in the 2 years I've been here. I shake my head. I look at the inefficiencies. So to answer the specific question, how are you going to measure us, right? Look at what we investigate, look at the evidence we produce, look at the summary that we end with, and then look at the action we take, right? If there is nothing there, I'll be the first to raise my hand and say, I was pleasantly surprised based on the initial information we were provided after we've done the investigation, there isn't anything here. But I'm going to tell you, if there is something there, we're going to make recommendations as to how we're going to solve that problem, including and up to legislative acts to solve that problem. So every case you're going to have to look at individually to measure us, right? And I said earlier, this is not going to be a witch hunt. This is going to be a legitimate attempt to bring the state of Michigan back to the citizens and the taxpayers of Michigan. It is too far gone. Our budget is what, up 48% in the last 6 years? $80 billion, and we can't find money to fix roads? Come on, no one believes that. We are operating inefficiently, and we are losing money to waste, to fraud, and abuse. So whatever those three things are, or whatever those three things is the reason, they're going to stop. We're going to make an attempt to stop them, and we're going to use taxpayers' dollars more efficiently, and ultimately that's my goal. We force taxpayers to send us money, right? Under the penalty of going to jail. The least we can do is be responsible with that money. Spend it in an efficient fashion. I mean, it's like a candy store over here. The amount of money that is just spent. We had a $9 billion surplus? We had a $9 billion surplus a year and a half ago. It's gone. That is irresponsible government. So what I would like you to do is hold us accountable to be certain that we're doing the order of things I told you. Get the information, dig into it, work it through, make a decision if it's valid. If it is, fix the problem.
Pointed out to a separate oversight committee, rather than maybe having like appropriation subcommittees like this, is it in effect to put departments on notice that this is something that the House is taking special care look at?
Are you talking about the subcommittees?
Yeah.
The subcommittees, the oversight committee in particular, rather than having like appropriations, look in and be like, hey,
Oh,
there's ways to
yeah, I can answer that. So, I think in some ways appropriations and oversight have different missions. So ultimately, appropriations I think, has an important role in holding these departments accountable. But what I see over time, just the way it's operated up here in Lansing, is often these appropriations subcommittees become a little cozy with the departments. And ultimately, if the department doesn't support the budget that the appropriations committee negotiates, then the governor probably won't sign it. And so there's this conflict with these appropriations subcommittees that ultimately they have to get to a landing spot with the department where the department signs on to their budget. Oversight committees won't have that conflict. Oversight committees can just do their job without having to worry about the department ever agreeing to what the oversight committee says. So that's the reason for the difference.
You mentioned that you would like to see state workers back in person. I know that is an executive order from President
Yeah, I can touch
All
on
right,
that.
go ahead.
I mean, I would say that as we hear things like having to raise taxes to provide a fundamental expectation of government, like our infrastructure and roads, while we write millions and millions of dollars in checks on leases to empty office buildings, one of two things has to happen. We have to justify the use of that building, or we have to break the lease, right? This is not a cash cow for landowners, for building owners, right? So I would argue, if you look at every study that's been done with regard to at-home working, right, the performance and the productivity goes down, right? So I would say that our responsibility first for the finances of the state of Michigan says, well, we're not getting the best outcome or the best benefit for the dollar we're spending. So the short answer would be, we should look long and hard at the efficiency of the way it's structured today, whether those people should come back to work in person or not.
Yeah, and, and just the direction and guidance I'll give to our committees, from appropriations to oversight to others, is these departments are going to have to justify why these workers are not in the workplace. And they're going to, the presumption is going to be against them, that this is a good idea, and they're going to have to really demonstrate above and beyond why these government workers should all be working at home when the pandemic has been over for years. Anything else? I know we got to get to session. Yeah, how's it going?
Good, how are you doing? I'm curious, you had mentioned earlier, I believe one of your first press conferences, when we asked about FOIA legislation, it said you wanted some greater transparency in the budget and in the revolving door between lawmakers and the lobbying corps. I'm curious, since that was something that had come up last session as part of the RIDE Act that Democrats introduced, are you looking, now that we have an oversight committee chair, are you going to be looking to reintroduce those bills or introduce a Republican version of some of those bills and policies?
Yeah, so, in the past, there was like this Oversight and Ethics Committee. This time, this is Oversight, and what's unique about it is we've created these 6 subcommittees, something that didn't exist before, and the reason for that was, when I was Oversight Chair, I just found it was too hard to, how do you do, there's a lot of problems in state government, and you have one committee that kind of moves around like this and shoots one shot. That's why breaking it up into more subcommittees allows for the flexibility for a committee with different leadership and to focus on different things so that we can get to all of these problems in state government that need to be fixed. So you'll probably see a different committee take these bills up. But yes, I intend that soon you'll see us introduce a bill to end the revolving door or lobbyists, where the politicians become lobbyists. I think that's important. You've already seen in our House rules that we're pushing back on these earmarks. And, under Governor Whitmer, it's an average of $600 million a year in earmarks, whether it's the ones, not just the ones I talked about, the ones that Beth talks about too, the transportation and the health and all these other ones, all these enhancement grants, $600 million a year under Whitmer every year. And it was higher in some years, more than more recent years, but that's a lot of money. And so we're saying in our House rules, tell us who you are, who's the sponsor, where is it going, and what is the public benefit, and disclose that in advance of a vote. And we're going to move forward with a resolution soon that will detail that process. So you're going to see us moving on these issues. The issues that I think are the most significant in terms of bringing true transparency to government. So I think we're going to go to session now. Hopefully we have a big day over at session. You have a question?
I do have one more.
Who are you?
I think both of you alluded to it throughout.
What are you? Who is this? Oh, great. Yeah, great publication. You guys are more fair than a lot of the press, and that's surprising to a lot of people.
Appreciate that. I was just wondering, because I know two of you alluded to it, I think you made some comments during the press conference yesterday about, kind of the weaponization of government. I was just wondering if you could kind of give like an example of, what that is, that we've seen in recent years, or kind of more clearly define what that subcommittee is going to be looking for.
Is there anything you want to say, or you want me to?
Go ahead.
All right. Yeah, I think we've seen it in a lot of places. You look at the way the government has been weaponized during the pandemic. where they're threatening people's licensure over cutting hair and things like that. You know, you look at the targeting by our Attorney General of people, probably for political reasons. I mean, you look at, they tie them up into litigation for years and years and years. You know, people like Matt DePerno, and you look at what they've done with these, you know, these presidential electors, and they've tied them up for years and years and years, and there's no end in sight. You look at what they did to Governor Snyder. I mean, these people, for years and years and years, charged him with crimes, and then it didn't get anywhere, got dismissed. They're trying to prosecute their political opponents, and they're weaponizing government. I'll give you another one. Do you remember the Marshall Battery plant, where a C4 tied to Governor Whitmer started attacking regular Michiganders just for expressing opposition to the Marshall Battery plant? I'm sure Jay DeBoyer will have a lot more in his committee, but I'm just saying we're seeing it all over state government where innocent Michiganders or political opponents of the Democrats are being targeted by law enforcement and prosecutors or departments. I mean, I will tell you, I've had so many people in government, or like, you know, regular people come to me and say, I can't speak out about this matter because I'm worried that I'll lose my license, or MDOT will punish me with a contract because of how political this administration is. And so, you know, we'll see. I mean, we'll see, you know, when you get a complaint like that, when somebody comes to you and says, hey, my OSHA was in here and they were bullying me because we have a contract negotiation, and the union leader told me that we'd be having a visit, and then they show up and they say, you know, that kind of stuff. You know, you take those issues, you look at the leads, you investigate them. Some have merit, some don't. The ones that do have merit, you move forward with those, and you know, and these subcommittees will look into them. And I mean, but again, no Michigander should have to worry for years and years and years of litigation with no end in sight and no direction, and then these things just get dropped. That costs hundreds of thousands of dollars to innocent Michiganders. I mean, the stress and the impact on their livelihood when government is targeting them is incredible. I mean, you look at what happened to Ken Borton, you know, with what happened with the DNR up there. You should talk to him about that sometime. So it happens. It's been happening for years, and this subcommittee will look into it. I think we got session. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Yep.